Okay, I mean, I think it's 7:30, so let's get started. Welcome to Art Machine 2. This is the session called Practical AI. So my name is PerMagnus Lindborg, and it's my privilege to host this session and to introduce four speakers, four papers to you. Now, the four speakers, I will briefly say their names. They are Daniel Chávez Heras, and together with Alfonso, Sánchez, López. And then we have Manni Chen, together with PerMagnus Lindborg, myself. Then we have Kelvin Lee, and finally Joo-Wha Hong. So the housekeeping, okay, so there's an agreement here, so everybody should be aware of that this session is being recorded and will be available to registered Art Machine 2 attendees until the 15th of September 2021 at the conference website. It will not be accessible to the public. For online participants, if you do not wish to be recorded, please exit the session at this point or turn off your microphone and camera. Okay, welcome also to people in the room here. It's great to see you. Thanks for being here. And to, of course, everybody who is in the Zoom session, and especially our speakers. So as I said, this session, it's called Practical AI, but the conference director, Professor Richard Allen, he whispered into my ear that really this is the empirical session. So it's part of, this session will be taking place within this overarching framework, and it's about discussing the bits and bolts of how AI, as a form of advanced machine, can be applied as a tool both for making and for understanding art. Each of the four papers that you will hear in this session is an example of practical explorations that involve AI. Most are made by young people. In fact, 3 papers are authored by current PhD candidates in the United States, the UK, and Hong Kong. So when I was reading the abstracts and the online profiles of the authors, I sort of noted it seems to me that there are 4 important commonalities. One is the fluency that each one of these authors displays in applying computational tools to his or her research. The second is their passion for music, film, and painting. Third is the conscientiousness that they show in putting the research to the test via formal evaluations and deep probing theoretical discussion. And fourth is their human-centered approach, a dedication to developing practical applications of AI that have the potential to serve people in their daily lives and artistic pursuits. So if you, for a moment, you forgive some flourishes and mixed metaphors, I think that these 4 papers, they're more than in-progress research reports. They are sort of letters from the front line. They are reports from scouts leading a campaign into the dark future. And the audience is we are invited to step into their kitchens, as it were, to see what research they are cooking up. Okay, so I will give a brief presentation for each one of the 4, and we will hear the presentations, and there will be a moment for you in the Zoom audience to type in a question into the chat, but the chat will only be open for a short moment. I will indicate when you can actually type in that question. And after the 4 presentations, each of which is 20 minutes, I believe, and you will be getting time cues to keep track of your time, if necessary. And at the end of this session, we will have a live Q&A session with all the authors to take these questions and to discuss the topics further. Okay, so with this, I would like to present to you the first paper, and that is going to be given by Daniel Chávez Heras, and I hope that is a at least approximately okay pronunciation of his name. I believe it's Mexican origin. Daniel, he has, I believe, recently completed his PhD at King's College, London, earlier this year. So he is interested in, and I quote, radical reciprocity between aesthetics and computation. And together with Alfonso Sánchez, López, their project that they're presenting today, it interrogates how computers can be taught aesthetic judgment by setting up a natural language conversational system between AI film critics and a human moderator. So with this, I give the word to Daniel, please.
Hi, hello Art Machines Conference. Thank you very much for your interest in our paper. My name is Daniel. I will be presenting on behalf of my colleague Alfonso, who cannot be here today, but he was involved in the web scraping of the data that we use for this paper, so a shout out to him as well. Our paper is called Listen to Reason in Conversation with a Computational Critic. In this paper we wonder what does a computational critic look like? And how can we talk, how do we interact with one, or how can we talk to one? This is kind of what animates the paper. So I'll try to do three things. I will provide some context for the paper and where we're coming from. I will then spend some time speaking about the data that we used. And finally, I will try to do a little demo of the system we redesigned as a proof of concept for what we think might be a model for computational criticism as well. Right, so initially the first kind of the biggest piece of context that I can give is that the idea is grounded on computational aesthetics. In other words, using computers, specifically inductive computing, machine learning for example, to perform aesthetic judgment and aesthetic criticism. This might be slightly different to creative applications of AI and machine learning, although as we'll see towards the end, it also connects in meaningful ways, I hope. So to kind of provide a very, very quick introduction to this problem, we can go back into the past to David Hume's standard of taste. And he was probably one of the early proponents of kind of empirical methods, you could even say algorithmic methods, for aesthetic judgment. No? And he recognized this paradox, as he called it, the paradox of taste as well, but also a larger paradox between subjective judgments and that are really personal and difficult to compare with each other. And also similarities, once you aggregate them, there are also regularities about them. This is actually not from the standard of taste, this is from the quote on screen is from the skeptic. But this is kind of the tension that he already sees, no? So in the standard of taste, he kind of seeks a rule with which to by a rule he essentially means like a little process by which one can adjudicate between different opinions, different judgments of taste, no? Whether like say this film is better than this other film, and so on. And he does this by aggregating all the verdicts of all the judges, all the critics, as he calls them, true critics, which are critics free from certain obstructions. So I'm butchering Hume, but this is kind of the gist of it. And obviously you can see how this prefigures modern recommender systems. What Hume is after is a metascore, no? The idea that if you aggregate all the critics' scores, you get something out of it. That's kind of the consensus, the critical consensus about a specific work, in this case a film, although I think Metacritic does also TVs and games and so on. And this is a way in which you can reconcile different opinions. No, you can say, well, this is better than this, or this other, this film is better than that one, and so on. Now, obviously, the kind of this was then taken in a different direction by streaming platforms. So you'll be familiar with Netflix and the recommender systems that Netflix uses. So their suggestions for you, they tailored for you. in a way, and so you get like a machine learning system that learns from your preferences and then suggests what to watch based on that. No. Now, our argument is that this is kind of just one aspect of criticism. No, it bears some similarities with Hume's empirical idea and empirical mechanism and inductive logic. But the problem with recommender systems is that they're not usually designed to produce general rules. They do not solve disputes by adjudicating between conflicting judgments. No. Instead, they bypass judgment altogether, and they just produce tokens of prediction that then, tailored for you, as I was explaining, as I was saying. So the problem with this is that they conflate liking with assessing, and this is a point that Noel Carroll makes about the standard of taste as well. No, you can like something without necessarily assessing it. And you can assess something without necessarily liking it. Recommender systems mine likes and mine preference, individual preference, but they don't really do assessment or explanation. Carroll defines the task of a critic as producing not only personal verdicts, but explanations, public assessments grounded in reasons. And this is partly the definition that we're working from to redesign what a computational critic might look like. So a defining aspect of judgments made by critics is that the reason they offer to support their arguments are presented publicly, and they are presented to elicit social agreement and social consensus. So it's not just about my preference or the movie that I like. It's about saying that this movie is better than another, and willing to put this judgment forward and also be willing to be proven wrong, essentially, no, or at least contested. So in many ways, this is the key difference that we are trying to model computationally, or at least to explore computationally. So recommendation without assessment is sterile for aesthetics because it cancels the possibility to examine or verify or contest a critic's the explanations of critics. No? And this, in turn, kind of prevents from forming a meaningful social consensus and canons of taste that can be established, challenged, or overthrown collectively. So this is the social dimension of criticism that's completely absent from recommender systems. Right, so redesigning these systems, what does that entail? Well, the first thing to note is that the question changes, no? Is no longer a question of a computational critic, but is more, can we, not just an agent that can prescribe what we might like, but one that can help us assess, question, and even persuade us to change our individual preferences in relation to other agents. In other words, can we model the social dynamics of aesthetic judgment using inductive computing? And this is the problem that we want to deal with. So to do this, we created kind of a little experiment. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So we're taking films as a case study, and we're taking because of also the connection with Metacritic, we're taking this type of review aggregator, for example, no, Rotten Tomatoes, and we're also using data from a YouTube channel called Movie Clips. Now these are from the same parent company, so that on the one hand that makes them kind of very specific in terms of the films that they do. So it's popular Hollywood cinema, essentially. And on the other hand, it helps in terms of matching a little bit the data because they're dealing with many of the same films. So, for example, if we do Jurassic Park here, now you'll see that, so let's go for the original one, 1993, Jurassic Park, and they'll give you information about the film, some form of score, aggregation, and so on. And if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see these are the critic reviews, no? And it'll tell you the name of the critic, the publication, and the review, and they will read something like shows us a director in transition, and the film captures his transformation in its own kind of cinematic Amber, no? So that sort of critic line or response. And there are many different pages for this. So in this case, loads of critic responses. And then the same clip can be found in Jurassic Park in movie clips. So actually, the film is broken down into several clips, and you can see all of them in the channel. So you will do the first one, and they're usually in order. And
This entrepreneur brand logo that was done
forget about the ads, sorry.
by a top freelancer and Fiverr.
So we skip the ad. So you'll remember Jurassic Park 1993. This scene very famous and popular. It's the first time that you see the dinosaurs and so on. And these clips, they're short. They're about 2 minutes, maybe. Some of them are shorter, and there's usually between 5 and 10
Cretaceous
of them.
period. I mean, this
Some films have a few more. Some films have there are a little less. No? But you get the sense of it. Right. And below you see the comments. You get loads of comments these are not professional critics, these are just fans of the film and essentially YouTube people who are on YouTube now. So they're very different, but you get also that critical sense for them as well. They do offer reasons as well, and they offer them publicly. No, so you can also classify them as critics. So you can see, for example, you get from responses like this one. I can't stop crying every time I see the scene, and so on. But you also get some are a bit more nuanced, and the reason this scene is so impactful is because and so on and so on. So he's trying to explain themselves. Is putting forward their own explanations and their own reasons. So by Noel Carroll's definition, these are also critics. They're just not professional critics, say. So I want to spend just a few minutes talking about the data. So as you can imagine, with any web scraping operation, and being that this is a particular YouTube channel and a particular website, there are loads of biases that go into this data. No. So initially, for example, you get more recent films get a lot more reviews and a lot more comments, and this is true for both sites as well. And you also get biases of all sorts. No? So you get some critics having a disproportionate number of reviews. Whereas many others just have one or a couple of reviews, and the same thing with publications. No, so you'll get publications that are very well represented, and many others that have just a few reviews. So you'll get on the top critic, you'll get Roger Ebert, Rich Klein, Brian Orndorff, etc. And on the publication side, you get obviously Film Critic, Time Out, New York Times, Variety, and so on. But also running a little analysis on the critics, for example, we can also see that there are other elements of it, other types of biases. So they're mostly male critics. They're mostly white, as far as I can tell from a sampling. This is actually the male-female is a computational analysis, but I also sampled their pictures, which you can see in Rotten Tomatoes. So you can kind of try to see what type of mix in terms of ethnic origin as well, and so on. So there are loads of different biases that go into the data, and obviously anything that is generated through this data will reflect many of these biases, no? And this can also be useful in a different sense, but it's important to note it here as well. So what we did is we trained a couple of language models. This was done using the Max Wohl's fantastic notebook. So a shout out to him as well. So we used his notebook to train two models based on OpenAI's GPT-2 which again has its own set of bias. Go to the website to learn more about those. And we ended up with a computational critic and a computational fan. So the critic is defined as the one that the language model does fine-tuned with the film reviews, and the fan as the one that is fine-tuned with the YouTube comments. And loading these, then you get the chance for them to speak with each other, no? And to be to interact with a human critic, in this case myself, no, or whomever is using the system. So we load the models and we create these functions to okay, classic, run out of memory. Sorry, bear with me. So you get, as I said, so you get two computation agents, a critic and a fan, and so we can now see them, say, with Jurassic Park, 1993, something like that, and you'll get a response from the critic. So in this case, we programmed so it has 3 different responses, no? And it will give you something like this. Now, this is this is generated by the language model, which is fine-tuned on the film reviews. But interestingly, then you can try to, as a human critic dealing with these 2 agents, you can try to not only get a sense of the language that is used for the language that critics use, but also you can try to then use these as seeds for the fan. So if they were chatting with each other, you could say, well, no, this is a film with no story to tell. Well, not particularly true of Jurassic Park, but anyway. And you can use these to seed the fan, and then the fan will respond, no, accordingly. Now, there are loads of parameters that need to be adjusted because some of these responses are way off. Sometimes it makes up weird text and weird responses, and this is all more of a technical, part of a technical refinement of the system. But this is just to give you an idea of what it would be, no? So the fan would respond something like this, no? This is just an internet. So this is, for example, very odd. I don't know why it's coming up with that. But you can see, what I love this movie so much. No, they don't make movies like this anymore, and so on. So you get a sense of how this could work. Now, obviously, this is not finished. This is not polished. But with the new GPT-3 version of it, you could also do kind of a conversational interface of the kind, no? So following for conversational with a computational film critic. So hello, computational film critic, how are you today? Yes. Are you a fan? Yes, I am a fan. No, and then I can ask, what do you think of Jurassic Park? No, and then Steven Spielberg, the movie is a great example of how there are computer graphics and so you see the idea, no? So this is obviously much more powerful in terms of the engine. Is also probably taking data from the reviews, not explicitly as we are, but is very much the same idea, no? So what's the point of all of this? Well, the point is to say that what we're trying to say with the paper, our argument is that we need to recover a social space to discuss judgments of taste, and recommend this would a computational critic or a model or computational model of criticism would necessarily involve an exchange between different types of agents. So one of the areas that's exciting about this type of inductive computing work is that you could, for example, try to model a specific critic, no? Maybe one that is no longer around, no? So you could try to aggregate all of the reviews and see how would that model compare with others. But also, and going back to the data, you could potentially look at the biases of the data and also try to create some synthetic data to say compensate, but at least to put into perspective, the dominance of a specific critics, of a specific publications, but also of a specific languages, even like English. One of the interesting aspects about mining the YouTube comments is that many comments are not in the English language, so the fans are a bit more ecumenical in that regard, or in that sense. So this is kind of the gist of our project. I just want to end on that note. This is obviously kind of a proof of concept system, but the idea is precisely that, no? So I'll just want to read kind of the last bit of our paper, no? To reimagine this type of computational critic, we mean that unlike recommender systems, this experimental setup does not rely on numerical ratings, stars, thumbs up or down signals, no? It relies on natural language in many ways. And although recommendation, discovery or endorsement might occur as a result of the moderator's interaction with the system, its design is not fundamentally prescriptive, is not to tell you what you should watch. Instead, the goal is to computationally abstract, through inductive computing, the types of reasons different audiences offer in support of their judgments, and to present them for scrutiny alongside the clips themselves in a reproducible conversational format. So in other words, access to conversation is what really activates aesthetics in a larger sense. And this is what we're trying to do with this particular experiment. Well, I hope you enjoyed our paper. Thank you very much. And look forward to seeing other presentations and to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. That was nice. And so now there is 1 minute for people in Zoom to type in your question that you will have. Please keep them coming, but you have to type fast. 1 minute only. And I suggest that in the audience here in the room, you can think up a question, and if you have it ready right now, why don't you just ask it during these 45 seconds that remain? Or you can write it down on your sleeve or something, and we can keep it for the Q&A. So should I unmute myself? This keeps coming up. Okay. Okay, so time to move on, and we're going to go into the second presentation of this evening in Hong Kong. The paper is called Evaluation of AI Reverberation on Guitar, and it's given by Ms. Manni Chen. She's a current PhD candidate, and she's studying with me at the School of Creative Media at the City University of Hong Kong. So Manni's research project is about AI in audio production. Her main interests lie in investigating the application of automatic audio effects in music and broadcast studio production. The study she presents today focuses on reverberation, which is made by an AI agent or a human audio engineer, and to evaluate these results and compare them in different ways. So, Manni, all yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm Manni. My topic is evaluation on AI reverberation of guitar. Firstly, I will give an introduction to my topic, and then I will illustrate the methodology, pilot, experiment. I will also talk about data analysis and draw a conclusion to last. Recently, the AI technology has been applied into a range of audio effects, such as the reverberation, compression, etc. So it's interesting to explore whether there's difference between the musical work made by AI and human, and what are the differences between them. So the findings will contribute to deeper understanding of AI in studio music production and give indications to sound engineers to adopt new strategy on their work. So it facilitates the use of AI audio effects in audio industry. In this study, we concentrate on reverberation and guitars, meaning that we only focus on one audio effect and one specific instrument to compare the sound effects made by AI and human sound engineers. The paper can expand to other audio effects such as compression and equalization, and expand to other instrument and musical styles. As for my methodology, we choose 6 musical samples, which are from our own recordings in studio and from a free online mixing resource. Each sample is 15 to 20 seconds long. There were 3 versions in this study, one with reverberation added by the AI reverberation from Sonible called Smart Reverb. The other version is the human version. In this condition, the human engineers were required to add reverberation on musical samples instead of using any other audio effects or doing any editing on the musical samples. The last version is the original version. So we get 6 samples with 3 versions. We get total 18 stimuli to explore through objective measurement and perceptual listening evaluations. As for the objective measurement, we used a tool called Mirror Toolbox to extract several musical features, including RMS, brightness, mirror love, MFCC, and decay time. The RMS is the average volume of each musical sample, whereas the brightness, mirror love, and the MFCC refer to spectrum. The MFCC gives a simple description of spectrum, and mirror love is related to part of the spectrum that contains 85% of energy of the musical sample. The decay time is about temporal duration, which is closely related to the reverberation. So it's the reason why we choose this feature in this study this time. Okay, let's see some objective measurement in plots. For the RMS, we can obviously find that the AI version have higher value of RMS, higher volume compared to the human versions, whereas the human versions have longer decay time compared to the AI ones. For the brightness, MFCC and Mirrorlov, there are not big differences between the two versions, and those three features are all related to spectrum. Okay, after the objective data, let's talk about the perceptual experiments. We conducted 2 listening tests in the perceptual experiment. For the first listening test, which is an initial online pilot that contained 10 participants who are current undergraduate students studying sound art. And they finished the questionnaire via Question Pro, which is a platform for questionnaire. And then there were 18 stimuli presented in randomized order in a repeated measures design in that Question Pro, which means that each participant have to evaluate each stimuli twice, and each stimuli was evaluated on 15 semantic rating scales labeled reverb amount, warmth, brightness, roughness, airiness, sweetness, depth, harshness, likability, clarity, length of reverb tile, wetness, distance, thickness, and diffusion. Those words are from previous study of books and interface of plugins of reverberation. However, we didn't want to really compare anything from the first pilot. Through this pilot, we aimed to reduce the 15 scales into 4 scales to use into the formal experiment. So after collecting data from the first listening test, we use PCA, the principal component analysis, to reduce the 15 scales and get the more meaningful and representative scales labeled clarity, wetness, diffusion, and warmth. So in the second listening test, which is the formal experiment, we only have 4 semantic scales for each stimuli, and each of the 36 questions only include 4 scales to evaluate. This time we have 33 participants to join in the online experiment, and they are required to wear professional monitor headphones with stable emotions, and 20 of them are professional sound engineers, which means that they are familiar with reverberation and use it in daily life, and 10 of them are master or PhD students who research in sound art, and also lecturers who worked in the university to teach sound. Remaining 3 people have a bachelor degree in sound. None of them reported hearing impairment. Average age is 30.21, and 19 of them reported males, 11 of them reported females. Through this second listening test, we got 4,752 information. And we used the MANOVA, the multivariate analysis of variance, to detect the group differences between the different versions, meaning that we simultaneously test 4 scales to see whether the wetness, clarity, diffusion, and warmth vary by different versions. And the MANOVA result shows that there's a significant group differences between music processed by AI and a human. After MANOVA, we also test one-way ANOVA to detect whether there's group difference regarding specific 1 scale instead of 4 scales together. The ANOVA result shows that each of the 4 scales present significant differences between human and AI processed versions. However, the effect sizes from a coherence study are not big. For example, for wetness, the number is only 0.34, which is a small number, meaning that there are certain group differences there, but the group differences are small and not strong. Okay, now let's see the plots of the 4 scales. We can see that for the diffusion and the wetness, the AI versions were rated higher than human versions, whereas for the warmth, human versions were evaluated as warmer than the human version. For the clarity, the AI version and the human version are almost show the same degree of clarity. And apart from the clarity, the remaining 3 scales, for the remaining 3 scales, the original versions get lower rating compared to the processed versions. So it's time to give a conclusion. For the perceptual experiment, ANOVA and the MANOVA present significant group differences between processed music made by AI and human engineers, but the effect sizes are small in each scale, meaning that the data didn't provide solid support for big differences. However, we still can initially observe from the plots that, except for warmth, AI-made versions are generally evaluated as wetter and more diffused than human versions, and these 2 versions are evaluated as the same degree of clarity. For the objective experiment, the plots show that the music samples processed by AI reverberation present higher average volume than human-made versions, while human versions have longer decay time than AI versions after adding reverb. Whereas regarding the brightness, mirror MFCC, and the mirror loft, we didn't see obvious difference between AI and human work, meaning that the low end of processed music were not obviously affected by reverb from different environments. We only have 6 music samples in this study. The objective measurement requires plenty of music excerpts to facilitate reliable statistical investigation. But it's only the initial analysis and the very initial conclusion of this study. The next steps we will probably to find the relationship between the objective experiment and the data from the perceptual evaluations to see whether there's correlations between them regarding the differences between the AI and the human versions. And this paper will also expand to the other audio effects, other instrument and musical styles, and even the combinations of several audio effects to get clearer and more powerful conclusions. Thank you.
Thank you, Manni. Thank you for that. And so same as before in the Zoom listening session, you have 1 minute to type in your question to Manni's presentation. Please do so now. And in the room, you are also welcome to think up a question. And I'll try again. If you want to share the question right now, maybe we can squeeze it in before we move on to the next presenter. If you have something on your tongue, under your tongue. Any question? Rio, please.
Hi, Manni. So I have one short question to begin with. What was the reason for choosing this particular AI reverb for comparison?
So, Manni, if you could hear that question and you want to give a quick response to Rio's question there. So I'm not sure if Manni could hear that. I don't have a sign of it. So allow me, because I am the second author, so let me just try to give something like an answer to that. Manni is knowledgeable about various techniques, and she has worked as a sound engineer, audio engineer, before taking up her research studies now. And I think the specific choice of Sonible is a convenience, but it's also one of the most used audio effects, as far as I understand. Manni, do you want to add to that? Why Sonible?
Yes. Okay. Okay, actually, I don't have many choices of this kind of AI representation in the market, actually, because in previous research, see some AI representation always require science people. They want to test this kind of reverberation. It's not on the market, and it's not natural enough to be product for us to use, and it's not used by many users in the world who will want to try one AI reverberation that's used by many users in the audio industry. So I took use this kind of reverberation that's used by many musicians and sound engineers. And Congo is one of the most audio effects in the choices. So this is one of the reasons why I choose this kind of sample in this study. And another thing that also can. Okay, I see some message.
Manni, just is fine. Just keep it short. We have a snappy exchange in between the presenters. So I think the main point was that Sonible is fine. It's available. It's a commercially available tool, and you wanted to try it out.
Yes, the thing is that I don't want to try any the kind of very new audio effects just made by some software developers. I want to use some natural tools, so I use Sonible. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And it's nice to have a question response like this immediately after the presentation. But we shall move on, and there's a segue into Another very clear music application, and this is the paper called Let's Shake, Music is Fun. And it's given by Dr. Kelvin Lee, who is a computer scientist. And he's working with animation, interactive arts, and creative coding at the Academy of Film at Hong Kong Baptist University. So now, reading his abstract, I made the reflection that, as everybody knows, in the past few years in Hong Kong and in other places as well, it seems as if an entire society is faced with very deeply rooted stressors, both external and internal. And naturally, this affects the daily life of residents. As Kelvin writes, and I quote, "It is not easy to open a dialogue with a stranger, let alone to collaborate." So today, Kelvin will present a smartphone music app that can draw people together in a participatory, playful music making.
Hi, this is Kelvin Lee from the Animation and Media Arts Hong Kong Baptist University. I'm going to present my artistic project abstract, Let's Shake, Music is Fun. Here is my presentation rundown. I will first show you an introductory video of my work, and then I will elaborate my motivation and the two key elements in my design, which are the playfulness and engagement. And then I will explain the workflow from the user perspective and also the system architecture behind the whole thing. If you have any question, I'm happy to answer it in the Q&A section. Now, let's take a look at the introductory video first. Okay, I hope the video has given you a general idea about my work. As shown in the video, it is quite often people listen to the music, just use it as a way to isolate themselves from the public. And gradually, we have built an invisible wall that is dividing us. Certainly, this is not a good thing. I believe music should draw us together and is a medium for us to share our joys. So, Music.Fun is designed to engage participants to share music while having fun. The two key elements behind the design are playfulness and engagement. Actually, playfulness is not a new thing. It was used in the project Piano Stairs by Fun Theory, which was an initiative by Volkswagen. The project objective is to encourage people to exercise more by taking the staircase instead of using the escalator. By turning the staircases into piano keys, people were having fun while walking on the staircase with audio feedback. Now let's take a look at how the piano stair works. Another important element in my design is engagement. Like the project Lookup by Akane, engagement is used to prompt participants to look up from their phones to greet each other at every intersection in the New York City. Now let's take a look at the project Lookup. Based on the two elements, playfulness and engagement, Music.Fun is designed to encourage people to have fun, to share the music, and engage with each other. Music.Fun is designed in the form of a web app. Now, let's talk about how does the web app works. First, a participant has to open the URL of the web app from a mobile phone browser. Upon successful connection, the participant will be greeted by an opening animation and then followed by the welcome screen. The participant has to tap the screen to get started. Every participant will only get one active track. The active track is animated according to the track's volume. The other three inactive tracks are deemed without animations. Depending on which track is activated, different audio loop will be played back. Starting from the top, we have the lead audio loop in red, followed by the chord in green, and then bass in blue, finally rhythm in purple. In order to activate all those inactive tracks, each participant has to pair up with 3 other participants with the corresponding active tracks. In this scenario, participant A wants to activate the purple track. He finds another participant B who has an active purple track. So, they both highlight and select the purple track and shake their phones together. If their shakes are synchronized, then the purple track will be activated in participation A, and both the highlight tracks will then be deselected Here is a simple demonstration. Okay, now let's talk about the system architecture. The diagram here shows you the information flow of the previous scenario when two participants are trying to share their active track. Actually, the whole system consists of client-side and server-side components, which are written in JavaScript. The server-side resides on the Heroku server. It maintains the WebSocket communication between client browsers. Moreover, it assigns track for new connection and also check mobile shaking synchronization. While the client script is responsible for track animation, user interaction, shake detection, and the track activation. That's all for my presentation. I hope my presentation has given you an overview of my work reshake.fun. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer it in the Q&A section. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelvin. And yes, there will be a Q&A section, and you are now invited in Zoom to type in your question to Kelvin on his presentation, and you get something like 1 minute to do so. And while you do that, let's ask the room, do you have any spontaneous, quick and snappy question for Kelvin that we can take during this time? Kelvin, can you hear us? Nobody is on Zoom, right? Okay. So he cannot come to the Q&A either? Oh, I see, okay. Okay, a little correction. So you can still come up with questions, but we won't unfortunately have Kelvin to respond to any of your questions at this point. But nevertheless, of course, this work will inspire us as we think about the possibilities offered by technology to stimulate and to create situations for social encounters and social interactions, which I think is the important contribution in Kelvin's work here. But we shall move on, and we have the fourth presentation of this session, entitled I Believe in AI's Artistic Ability. And it's given by Joo-Wha Hong, who is a PhD candidate at the Annenberg School of Communication and Journalism at the University of Southern California. Joo-Wha studies the social role of machines and AI from perspective of cognitive psychology. And his paper today will report findings from two of his recent studies with hundreds of participants, giving responses about their perceptions or people's perceptions of machine-created art. And specifically, this is in terms of understanding the artistic value of music in one study and paintings in the other study. And with that, we will give the word to Joo-Wha Hong.
Welcome. My video presentation today is about the influence of the perceived creativity of machines on the evaluation of their artistic performance. Machines have proved their artistic abilities in multiple domains, including composing music pieces, creating movie trailers, painting, and playing games. When assuming the consistent developments of algorithms, there should be no doubt about machines mimicking and imitating humans' work of art, completely. We should now consider the perception of machine-created art, because there have been doubts about its creativity and originality. So, let's talk about the perception of artworks. When you see art pieces, it is more than feeling visual stimuli. In other words, you need cognitive efforts to understand it. When you do that, schema, which refers to an active processing data structure that organizes memory and guides perception, performance, and thought, plays a crucial role. It may even change your impression of the art piece. Therefore, Understanding the perception of machines as art performers is necessary to determine how people see machine-created artworks. It should be noted that studies introduced in this presentation focused on the public understanding, not experts' opinions, for broader applications. 2 studies were conducted to examine how people evaluate different artistic performances of AI. One of them was about AI-created paintings, and the other was about AI-composed music. For the painting study, researchers showed multiple images of artworks, both human-created and AI-created. Then, one group of participants was told that the artworks were created by human artists. The other group was told that the artworks were created by AI. After seeing the images, they were asked to evaluate them. By comparing those 2 groups, the study found that the type of artists, either AI or human, did not change people's attitudes toward the art pieces. However, having a belief that AI cannot make art led to a negative assessment of AI-created artworks. In other words, participants' evaluation of AI-created art pieces relied on their understanding of AI. The second study was about AI-composed music. Participants listened to 2 different genres of AI-composed songs, classical and electronic dance music. 2 different genres of songs were given in order to reduce the bias coming from the genre. Then, participants were asked to evaluate the music pieces. The study found that the acceptance of creative AI led to more appreciation of AI-composed music. 2 studies showed similar results. People who accept the idea that machines can be creative are more likely to appreciate AI-created artworks than others. So, what do those results tell us? I think now may be a good time for art machine researchers to shift their perspective. There have been many studies to build machines that can create art, both conceptually and physically. Compared to those endeavors, fewer efforts have been made to examine people's understanding of AI artists, especially how they perceive machine creativity. Let's assume we somehow created an autonomous algorithm that functions exactly the same as a human artist with its own creativity. Still, what it does is meaningless to those who doubt machine creativity. To develop art machine fields and industries, we should come up with a way to persuade people that machines are qualified to become artists, even though convincing machine creativity may not be easy in the beginning. Thank you for watching this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it.
Wow, that was short. Okay, thank you for that introduction, Joo-Wha. Yes, we've had the 4 presentations, and we shall move on. Well, we have 1 minute for Zoom people to type a question to Joo-Wha Hong and the presentation you just heard. So let's do that first. 1 minute. And for the room as well, of course.
I have a question to Daniel.
Yeah, please go ahead. To Daniel, that's right, the first presentation.
Daniel, first I would like to have a confirmation that you were saying that your computational critic learns from the reviews it finds online, right?
Right, yeah.
So my question then is, how do you identify the credibility of training? I mean, how do you find the credibility of those reviews? You just might find some not so good reviews, and that just might affect your model.
What do you mean, not good reviews?
Sometimes, how do I put it? Let's say there's a big movie coming out. The movie stars some of very, very famous actors, and sometimes, I mean, a lot of times these big actors have a very strong fan following. And even if the movie is bad, they'll keep on shouting or promoting that the movie is still good because it is a very loyal fan base. So it kind of creates I would say disbalance, or maybe not an accurate representation of how the movie actually was. And I just feel that if those reviews are fed into the model, I'm not saying it's going to happen every time, but it just might lead to some it might form a wrong opinion for the movie. And
I understand what you're saying. Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, the first thing I would ask you back is how movie actually, would you say how it actually was? What do you mean? No, so that would be one thing, because this is the point of having both fans and professional critics, and of try to make a difference between, or try to at least separate the idea of liking with the idea of assessing, no? In terms of critical language. So if you're a big fan of a performer, and you will see them in everything they do, and you will like every film they do, regardless of how critically appraised that film is. But because you like this performer, then you're gonna always have a positive opinion. This kind of falls in the realm of liking. But if you are to produce a public assessment, you'd also have to explain yourself to others. So say you have to say, for example, this is a fantastic film because this performer is in it, but also you have to justify these decisions to others. And this is partly the task of critics, no? They will need to provide public assessments of not just of their preference. I don't know if that answers your question, but I also want to say this idea that there is a ground truth as to how the movie actually was is also constructed by both fans who will not necessarily want to offer any explanations other than their fandoms, although they will many times have explanations of their own if one takes the time to dig them out, and critical discourse of professional critics. These two sides kind of co-construct how the movie was. So there is no ground truth about how it actually was. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not sure if this kind of answers your question.
It does. I just have one follow-up. That would be, do you give equal weight to the reviews given by the critics and reviews given by fans, or is there a distribution of weights to reviews by critics and reviews by fans?
I am most interested in the dynamics between these two. So they are, if you're on the technical side, they are trained exactly under the same circumstances. I even out the data because obviously there is a lot more data on YouTube comments than on film reviews. So I have to even them out. No, so on the technical side, they are identically trained. Aside from the data. But beyond that, what interests me is the interaction between the two. So the conversation between the two is perhaps the most interesting thing to witness as a human participant, say. No?
So before you go into the detail of that moderation process, which I think is really the crucial point of your work, there's a question from a Zoom participant. That's Brian Crumpler. I'll read it here for everybody. So he seeks, he wants you to clarify whether what the computational critic is, what it is. I'm interpreting his question here. Are you creating an original critique by harnessing those existing human critiques, is his question.
I see. So when you say original, I think that's a loaded term, no? Because it's based on obviously it's based on critics that exist, on criticism that exists. And interestingly, if that wasn't the case, then you wouldn't recognize it as something like criticism or criticism-like. So the form, the shape of the things that GPT-3 or 2 or whatever outputs, you wouldn't be able to tell whether it's actually learned something from the reviews if these reviews weren't based on things that were already written. So I kind of object to this idea that these are completely original, synthetically created things ex nihilo, say, no, they are a reflection of the data that they are trained on, and this data is human cognitive aesthetic production. So in that sense, yes, of course they are. Now, in terms of originality, what I could say, they're not identical to any existing review, if that's what we mean, no? But they do capture, say, the structure of language of that of different types of assessment.
So
written assessments.
Daniel, can you give us a sense of the scale and the proportions of the data here that you're using? So you have two models that you're training, and so how large is the input to each one of them, and how many films are we talking about, and how many critiques, individual parts of text are we talking about?
Yeah, so I was initially interested in this because of the scale, no? Because it can be scaled up. There is a lot more data on popular Hollywood cinema, and these two sites belong to the same parent company, which is, I think, a subsidiary of Time Warner. So it's like they have loads of films, no? Similar films in many ways, but loads of them. Originally, my idea was to work with about 150,000 films. But for this particular experiment, I used 15,000 films. Now, the scaling is a bit peculiar with the clips because you have about 10 to 15 clips per film. So there are actually many more clips than films. But in terms of comments, YouTube comments, so I aggregated all the comments from all the clips that belong to the same film, if that makes any sense. And in terms of reviews, those are not given per clip; they're given per film, and there are a lot, fewer reviews. So just to give you an idea of the scale in terms of text, I'm not really sure how much of an idea this gives you, but it's about 10 megabytes worth of text on each side. So if you put it together as a TXT file, it'll be about 10 megabytes. So it's not huge, but it's not trivial either. No, so it's you can fit a lot of text into those 10 megabytes. And obviously the constraint here are the reviews, because the YouTube clip comments, you can, there are a lot, there's many more of them. But because I wanted them to be equally balanced, say, in terms of the amount of data that goes into them, the constraint was on film reviews. There are many fewer film reviews than there are comments on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a question from the room. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So, well, starting from the assumption that creative artifacts are sort of judged by humans, so we are the ultimate decider whether a movie is good or not, whether music is good or not, whether it's been created by a machine or a human, doesn't matter, as we've seen in the fore presentation. I'm wondering, well, is it the same for movies? So maybe there's many different positions that you can have on movies, on a particular movie, and so I'm wondering, why did you separate the critic and the fans in that way, rather than separating perhaps the sentiment or how that particular piece of text relates to the movie itself, whether it's positive or negative, because there is also numerical score, and instead of have a conversation between a fan or a critic that likes the movie or has a certain perspective on the movie, and see, maybe map all of these different perspectives, rather than try to have just one, because like you said, there is no really a way to describe how the movie actually is, but we have many different perspectives. So perhaps in your conversation, that could be a parameter or some conditioning where you actually have this perspective come out, and maybe a conversation between two AIs that have a different perspective on the same movie would be an informative way to see whether I like this movie or not.
I'm not sure I understand the later part of your comment, but to address the first part, this goes back to kind of a classic modern aesthetics idea of David Hume, to which I alluded in the paper, which is that critics engage with works of art or with works of cognitive culture, or however you want to call them, in this case films, in a very specific way, which is they engaged with these works to assess them. For Hume makes a distinction between what he calls true critics and which have to be free from certain obstructions. For example, like they have to have some practice. No, so you wouldn't, according to Hume, you wouldn't take a critic that has only seen one film. That would be an obstruction. They would have to have a lot of practice within that medium. They also have to have some form of understanding of medium specificity and so on and so forth. The reason I recovered this kind of division between critics and non-critics is because I think the tension there is what animates the conversation in many ways. No? So, for example, if you have true critics, they get together into critical discourse, they create canons, and that's how that's how you have the Academy Awards, no, for example. So critics do have a vote in some Academy Awards. I think in the UK, at least in the BAFTAs, they do vote, I think, and so on. Whereas fans do not. No, fans vote with their buck. They either go and see the movie or they don't, and that's how they. But in each case, they have very different things to contribute to discourse, and it's the conversation between the two where the negotiations of canon happens. So there are some films that are loved by critics, and they do terribly at the box office, and they're obscured and they're forgotten. And they are, and conversely, there are films that are recovered by critics, and that the critics actually bring them back into the public arena and so on. And by the same logic, fans also exercise their power, which comes from numbers, and I think this can also be seen in data. No, so. Fans, non-professional critics say, en masse, they can kind of bring a movie that was originally derided by critics, that critics did not like or didn't think much of it, and then fans will prove them wrong in the sense. So this is the conversation that I'm trying to model or trying to access computationally. And this is the reason I did kind of went for both for this separation between critics and non-critics. Now, this is a purely pragmatic preparation.
Yeah, sorry, I'd like to just come in on that discussion, and you're focusing on in principle, it's about how do we capture these nuances of understanding the aesthetics of cultural products, wherever these products come from. If they come from a machine or if they come from a fellow human being, we're still faced with trying to understand them and to very often to evaluate them, to judge them. So I want to bring in the perspective that we have from other presenters, sort of similar questionings, and perhaps we can compare the different methods and different perspectives in here. So in particular, I'd like to, if Joo-Wha, if you are there, if you can hear me, because you have also turned to, you have sought answers to some of the same questions by asking hundreds and hundreds of people questions about their opinions of paintings and bits and pieces of music. I mean, this could have been films, right? So to what extent do you see the each other's methods here correspond or being complementary?
Yeah, so when I did a study, my focus was about how people feel the aesthetic aspects of artistic machines. So when I measure them, for instance, the art study, the painting study, I actually use the measurements are actually used in art studios, evaluate financial value of art piece. For the music one, particularly I use items that actually experts use. That's difficult. I think it was the measurement that music teachers use to evaluate their students' music capacity. So it was a more practical but a more aesthetic approach than previous patients. And we found that we expected there might be a difference between AI and human patients, that they're actually different. But actually what I found was that there was of AI artists, how they think of AI. So whether the AI is capable of being created. So many people were negative about about AI being creative. Some were because of their religious, the other was background. Because of many reasons, had a different attitude toward creative. And once they have that idea, even though their painting is great or not, just didn't really look at it. They just give a low rating. It's really.
You had a notion of how positive or how negative your respondents were before seeing any of the items. So how positive they would be to the idea of AI creativity, let's say. But did you ask that question before showing them the artworks or afterwards?
Before, because I don't want their attitude to be by art pieces. Because most of my participants, I actually excluded participants who already have experience of AI paintings because they might already be biased their previous experiences. Oh yeah, so the participants were those who were not exposed to AI art showing either paintings or music. I asked.
And the stimuli that you used, they are all AI generated, or did you mix it up a bit with human generated, maybe similar pieces?
So for the painting study, actually it's funny because I present the study in the first the art machine conferences. That was.
We saw your photo online, yeah, from the first art machine.
So for that study, I actually used both human created and AI created paintings. But as mentioned in the presentation, even though it was actually human created, I told one group that it was created by AI. Even though it was AI created, I told humans whether the identity of artists matters or the type of artwork. As mentioned earlier, type of artist doesn't matter. And actually, I found some significant difference between AI created artworks and human created artwork. That's pretty. So intrinsically, I think there are still difference between AI created and human created music, art, getting.
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective, and I want to bring in here as well Manni Chen, of course, who in her study set up AI-generated and human-generated stimuli, and then let people, as well as the objective evaluation of this. So Manni, if you are there, I'd like to ask you. Well, firstly, what is your reaction to perhaps the study that's sort of a little bit similar to the one that you have been conducting, that Joo-Wha has made? So what are your thoughts about his work?
Sorry, I cannot hear the questions very well. Can you repeat?
Okay, I'll try again. So I want to bring you into this discussion and to have all of you sort of think about the work that each one of you is doing and see where the parallels are and where the differences really are. So specifically for you, Manni, when you see what Joo-Wha has done, where he is asking people to look at AI-generated paintings and bits of music. So how do you see the links to your work in that?
Yes, because in my study I focused on certain, the factors in music or some musical features. So I think in the paintings there were also some features in paintings. I don't know the very professional items, but I believe that you also will, compare some features between the AI generated and human generated paintings in terms of the certain features and the items in the paintings. Am I right?
Joo-Wha, what metrics did you use? What did people actually respond to?
So actually for my studies, I actually controlled the attributes of artists, painters, not really the art product. So for instance, I focus. So it's not about the study that I present. I looked at another study that I've been, but study found that people tend to prefer AI artists that are more human-like. So if they think how they process the information and make products is similar, if they're similar to human artists, then people think it's the AI artist as a legitimate artist and product. So there might be a difference. I didn't really touch on the product itself, but
Well, you write here in your paper that you had 3 dependent variables for the music study, and the one that it seems very interesting here is you ask people whether the work that they hear, whether it meets their expectations of AI composed music. So can you tell us a bit more about this? Where does that kind of question fit into the bigger picture? Why is this important?
So it was based on the theory called expectancy violation theory. So the theory argues that when people evaluate something, either human behaviors or everything, the expectation people have about that matters. And what also matters is that whether it is violated or not, but it also matters how it is violated. So for instance, you didn't expect to get a present from your partners, but suddenly your partner gave you a present. But so that's surprising. That's a good thing. Your expectation is violated. But you find out that the present is what you have wanted, then it's a positive violation. That is good. But you found out that that present is not, that actually is useless and you don't want them, then it's a negative violation. Gives you negative impression. So same thing. So before my studies, a lot of studies just ask people whether they like the AI created music or paintings or not, but not really ask whether that depends on their existing expectation about art product. And we found that the value of our products itself doesn't really matter. It really matters. What really matters is what expectations have about AI created artwork. And again, their expectation came from how they of AI art.
That's a very important conclusion, I think, that you're bringing here, and I would like to connect that with in Daniel's work, because I sort of see the situation that you're setting up, Daniel, with these 2 agents that you have created them out of nothing. Even if you sort of claim that they don't come from nothing, but you have made them, and then you let them have this conversation, but you moderate them. But you must be putting yourself into a situation all the time where your expectations of either critique is being fulfilled or or negatively countered. So this is more like a game-like situation, I think, in the way that you are exploring the space between these two critiques. Am I right? Is that what it feels like to be the moderator?
Yes, to an extent, it is, and I agree. I agree as well in terms of having, you know, the expectations of, you know, if you've read some film criticism before, or if you've been on YouTube a lot and read the comments, you would have an expectation of what would be a YouTube comment like, or what would be a critic's response like. Part of the richness of trying to capture this computationally is that it will sometimes subvert your expectations. No, so there is only so much you can read in terms of reviews, and usually what happens is that you have 2 or 3 favorite film reviewers, and then you don't read anyone else. And once you gather all of you know, many more, and then you get responses, this challenges some of your preconceptions, simply because how much you can sample as an individual is not commensurate to how much a computer can sample en masse. No, where I think the fundamental difference is in terms of my take on this, in any case, is that I do not tend to think of AI generated works. I tend to think of people using AI to generate work, or to create, or to generate things, but not necessarily as autonomously or generated synthetically, say, without human intervention. I mean, I think that's a very interesting debate, but it's not really one where I'm focusing. I am I'm interested in inductive computing and machine learning in general, because of how it can represent consensus and capture social consensus, not originality or not creativity. That's maybe where the difference lies.
I think we have some ideas and questions from people in the room here. If you want to feed in and ask any question, yeah, please go ahead.
This is more of a request directed to Joo-Wha Hong. I would like to begin by saying I really like the memes you put, and the GIFs, and the Google Voice. Good job with that. But my request is it possible to see any of the paintings that you showed the people in your study, the AI generated ones? Maybe 1 or 2 pieces, if it's possible.
So I'll just confirm the question. So you want to see the paintings that are actually created by AI, right?
Yeah.
I think that we all want to have a little bit more understanding of really what's going on in your study, so the details matter, right? So
yeah. So I'll share my slides just for a second. Is it showing? Okay. So no, this is not it. Oops.
Presentation was a little short, and I wish I would have gotten just a little more information about your studies. That's all.
Yeah. So this is one of the image that I used. I'll just find it here. So yeah, I think some of you might already know this, or some of you may not. So this Deep Dream generator is actually one the Google owned. I'm not sure whether Google still manage this or not. But so if you put your images, they have their neural network to understand the image by their own way, the AI way, and then produce outcomes. So if you go here, so this is something like they kind of create. So if you put the image of Puppy and Mona Lisa, then they create such an image like this. So this is Van Gogh's image, and I think he also put the, maybe, I don't know, puppy or bird. I see some patterns here. So this is how AI created the artworks. Is only one of them. There are also other I'm not sure whether I can. Yeah, so this one it is pretty famous. So it was sold in a really high price. So I remember I used this. So this is how AI create those images are pretty similar between the AI artists. So they kind of get the image and they interpret the image in their own way and produce how they understood the image and this and demonstrate it. And that's the outcomes of those AI.
So Joo-Wha, when you design your study, you must make selection here. So how many stimuli did you present to your respondents? And
so I presented 4 AI created images and 4 human created images. And when I selected those, I try to find the image that looks kind of similar. And of course, it was a rather qualitative approach. It wasn't really quantitatively measured like numbers and then see whether there's similar or not. It was so there was my friend researchers, and then they helped me on finding images and kind of compare whether they look similar or not, and so on.
So we have this when we come up to doing perceptual empirical studies. We always have this conundrum about we have to limit the number of things that we're asking people to evaluate, and that's a very constraining factor in designs in general. And I think that in many ways Daniel in his work, by scraping these already existing bits of text, that is a very gregarious approach. You know, you take in lots of data, while Joo-Wha and also Manni are obliged to use a very much more necessarily precise and also constrained, limiting method. So I wonder where the connection could be between these. I mean, Daniel, do you see a way that's would it be interesting for you to have? I mean, in addition to the large quantities of very short, maybe often very superficial comments made on YouTube, compare that to the 50,000 word PhD thesis about The Matrix, a film, you know, and to sort of weigh the singular and probing against the mass. Do you see this as a dynamic that you could work with?
Yes, I mean, it's been the whole thing with the scales has been quite challenging from the beginning, no? Because it's the format is quite different. So critics write about whole films, and they would write long pieces about a film, whereas the clips are scattered. There's different clips, and they have loads of very short comments. So it's a very different type of structure and a very different type of response. The challenge in many ways is to try to balance those out in a way that they can talk to each other. I think one of the aspects that I pick up from all the other presentations as well is the idea of having interactions. No, I don't think we've heard from the other presenter, but this idea of not being isolated or not being kind of prescribed by algorithmic system, but actually using the algorithmic system to interact with other people, and putting that agent kind of in the loop between different groups of people, whether they're professional critics or not, or just fans or academics or researchers. I think that's where the part of an interesting direction focused on interaction and on we call it like human-computer interaction might be kind of the next to AI, the sort of path where I think I'm interested in at the moment.
I'm glad that you say that, and just so that everybody knows. So you refer to Kelvin Lee's presentation about the shake, what is it? Shake fun shake music. Let's shake. But he's very sorry he cannot be part of this Q&A. So at this point, it would have been great to have his comments on this, because his work is obviously very geared towards creating social interactions between humans. So, but maybe, okay, we have some people maybe more in the room, so maybe we have more ideas about where all these things come together. Please feel free to ask your questions that you have. I do have one more thing on my mind that I think could fit in here, and that's asking Manni specifically here to see where do you see your work is going. I know that you're going to be investigating a certain number of AI audio effects and seeing how they are perceived, etc. But where do you see this going? Do you want to develop some kind of social app like Kelvin, or do you want to investigate the different scales of engagement, as maybe what Daniel in his work is doing? Where do you see AI in audio effects and music production going?
Yes, actually, previously I was thinking about to explore the relations between the objective measurement and the perceptual factors, because sometimes we explore certain similar features in objective measurements and the perceptual things, but maybe they will get the totally different conclusions or different data. So I really want to detect whether there's a relationship or differences between the objective and the perceptual things. So
and it seems that in the already in the data that you're doing, there's actually some differences in the way that the objective measurements is saying what is different, and what people are saying is different.
Yeah. Actually, for example, in the objective factor, we say decay time, but in the perceptual things, maybe we say the perception of amount of the reverberation, but maybe they will not really match each other. For example, we can see the logistic regression. Maybe in the objective measurement, we found that if it turns to the AI size, the decay time gets longer. But maybe in the perceptual experiment, we found that it turns to the AI, but the amount of reverb gets shorter. So maybe we have the totally different or opposite detection in that experiment. So I really want to explore these kind of things in the ongoing research. But since today, I hear some new ideas from other presenters. So they really focus on the I think the process, not only the results, the works of AI. So maybe it's kind of new experiment inspirations for me. So maybe in the future research, I will also explore some things in terms of the process of the AI generated things, not only the results or the works of AI. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Yeah, I think any more questions or comments to that? Or if not, I think that we're going to be wrapping up. There are some last. I think I was supposed to give some last remarks. Well, I was supposed to say thank you to all the presenters and to give you a round of applause as. Well, it's a symbolic good applause for all of you, for all four presenters, 4 papers. And as you know, they will be available eventually online on YouTube, but not immediately. So they are available for other conference participants. And then after, I think in September, they will be available online to the world. And likewise with your abstracts. And I think with that, it just remains for me to say that I've much enjoyed getting to know all of you and your work a little bit. It's very stimulating, and I think there's a lot of promise, and I see all these different approaches that yet have some really important things in common. And that, I want to highlight that there is, of course, there's a fascination for technology that all of you show, but there's also a real concern about how the human not only fits into this situation, but actually should remain at the core of it. So all of the technologies are just tools, and they will benefit our understanding and our ways that we can produce works of art of different kinds. So thanks, Danielle, in London, I think, and to Joo-Wha, you must be in California, I think, and to Manni, who is right now in China, and also to Kelvin, who is elsewhere in Hong Kong at this point. So thank you to everybody who has been listening to this session, and I'll see you somewhere